Why not ask a contractor? Alright guys, today we're going to talk about dry packing a floor. So I'm doing this kitchen remodel here. We got everything tore out. The new cabinets came and we went to start setting them. As you can see, just in this kitchen area alone, the floor is off 2 inches. So in the back of this cabinet, we're actually down on the slab. By the time we get over here, we're 2 inches up. So that's going to create problems when we go to install the appliances. But basically, we're going to dry pack this whole floor to get it back to level. So we're going to walk you through how to do this process. All right, guys, so we're out here in front of the job site, and Gabe's over here mixing up a little bit of thin set. So could use there's self-leveling products. They're very expensive. They don't go very far. So for the amount of leveling that we have to do here, the best way to do it is I picked up some plaster sand, and I'm going to be mixing that with Portland cement. The ratio that I'm going to be using is 1 scoop of Portland and 3 scoops of sand, and we're going to be mixing it in my mixer over here. The ratio isn't super critical. If you were to use maybe 1 scoop of Portland and 1 scoop or 2 scoops of sand, it's not going to hurt anything. It's very rich mixture. You're just going to be wasting your Portland. So we're going to be mixing it to a consistency that is not really wet. We're just going to slightly hydrate it. So you're going to be able to, it's going to look like it needs a lot more water. We're going to, when you pick it up with your hand, you should be able to make almost like a snowball with it, and then it should still crumble. And I'm going to show you why we're going to be doing that here shortly. All right, you could use spec mix or a mortar for this process. The problem is it has lime in it. It's not going to hurt it. The lime makes it real sticky. So we don't want the lime. The lime's just going to make it difficult to work with in this process. The best way to do is either mix it yourself if you're going to be using a large quantity, or there's this stuff called a dry pack. So if you can go and get some dry pack, it's just like mortar but without the lime. You'll find that it makes it really easy to work with. When we put it on the floor, it's not designed to go really thin. So it will stick to the floor, but where we're feathering it thinner, we may have bonding issues. So what we're going to do is we mixed up a little bit of thin set. This is polymerized thin set. I only used polymerized acrylic thin set for this process because it's really sticky. So we're going to trowel that on with a really thin V-notch trowel. We're going to put a little layer of that on there, and then we're going to put the dry pack. And when everything's dry, and when everything's finally kicked off, that thin set's going to bond that dry set to the floor really good. So we won't have any issues later. So the idea is not to mix it like concrete. The difference between concrete and cement is concrete has aggregate in it, like rocks. So we don't want any rocks, they're gonna mess us up. That down there is just pure cement, no sand in it. So we're actually adding the sand ourselves here. And we kind of want to mix it as we're shoveling it in too. So the ratio is 1 and 3, but we don't want to put 3 scoops of cement in there and then 9 scoops of sand. We want to do 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3 each time. So we're mixing it as we put it in there. Okay, once I get the surface to the height that I want, and I fill in all the low spots and knock down all the high spots, I should be able to get it pretty flat. When you come out of these areas, you want to use a larger screed. So I have all of these screeds. If you level it, or at least flatten, even if you don't level it, with a screed like this, up to 6 feet throughout here, that's going to be flat enough for you to lay any kind of floor down, even if it's not level. This floor is probably not going to be dead level, but it should be dead flat. I also have an 8-foot screed out here that I'm going to be using when I get out into this area. But once you get the floor right where you want it, you want to finish hydrating it with water. And once you have the surface hydrated with water, you're just going to leave it, and that way the material can crystallize, do what it's supposed to do, come back tomorrow. It won't, the cement takes between 21 and 29 days to fully cure, so it will be a little bit soft tomorrow. I can go over it again with the screeds and just make sure that it's perfect, and it will be. Okay. Okay, this is why you don't want to mix it really wet. If you mix it wet, it's going to be difficult to spread around with your mahogany float. So you want to be able to move it around. You also want to be able to compact it. Now, if this floor, if the end result was a perfectly flat and level floor, then I would have marks all around the cabinets, all around the perimeter of the job site. I would kind of build up the outside and then screed everything in between. But there's going to be a lot of cheat in this kitchen, because if we make this floor perfectly flat and level, when we come out here, it's not going to match up to the existing floor, and it won't match up everywhere where his stairs are and everything else. So we're going to bring it up the best we can, and we are going to kind of cheat. So there's a lot of room for error. You just got to go for it. You know, you pack it, compact it, and then you screed it down to where you want. So if you want to overbuild it, and then you want to scrape the stuff off. So if we were just going to be putting tile on this floor, we would be doing the mud set. This is about half. This is kind of like the mud set process. You guys can watch my video on mud set here. I'll put a link at the end of this video so you can check out mud set. If I was going to be setting tile, I'd basically be doing exactly what I'm doing here, and then I would be putting thin set on the back of my tile and setting my tile. I'd be done as we go. But they're putting a floating floor here, so we want to get it pretty level. So when we're done tomorrow, I'm going to come back. I am going to use a little bit of Level Quick, and I'm just going to screed the Level Quick across this floor to fill in any little imperfections. It's also going to lock the top of this surface up really good. The top of the surface will be a little bit crumbly when we're done, so the self-leveling compound, self-leveling material will fix that problem really good and be perfect. So yeah. Wet, man.
These ones are a little more dry.
Oh, they are? Okay. Gabe. Okay, I think my son's out there mixing it a little bit too wet, but that's okay. Let me show you how I can tell. When I'm hitting it with my metal float, it's putting a little sheen on the surface, a little too much. Should do it a little bit, but not that much. That's okay. I'm just gonna leave that alone for a little while, let it start to kick off a little bit, and then I'll come back and I'll scrape it. It'll slow us down a little bit, but not a lot. Built up the perimeter pretty good. And so I just want to show you. Of course, when we get out into the main room, it's going to be a little faster and easier because there's no obstacles. But this floor, no matter where you put this screen on, pretty flat. So I just cut a little spot right over here. So. See how that works? And then I can just build in any low spots. I'm gonna work on that, but this is how far I've got so far. Now I'm gonna wet this. I'm gonna hit it with my metal float or trowel, and this is gonna be done. So we're out in the big room here. We're gonna build it up to our line all the way around. We're gonna give ourselves about 1.5 to 2 feet of build up. We're gonna get that just about right. And we're gonna take my big old 8-foot screed, and we're gonna screed from build up side to build up side. I also have this form set up at the perfect height. We're gonna screed it up. So yeah, it's gonna go fast now.
Okay, so here the floors had a few days to dry, and
if you were going to put tile on it, it'd definitely be fine at this point, but we're going to be putting a floating floor down. So the concern is whether or not some of these loose pieces would puncture the membrane. So what we're going to do at this point is go around the perimeter and just make sure there's no get rid of all these crumbles, and then we're going to put a self-leveling compound on the floor. We're not trying to level it all, we're just going to really thin skim the whole floor with it, and that's going to soak down in some of these areas where it's a little bit looser. It'll tighten it up really good, give us a nice firm surface. It's critical you follow the directions on this self-leveling stuff to the T. Weigh out your measure out your ounces of water and all of that. You got to do it perfectly, or else it will give you grief. So you got to remember this stuff is self-leveling, and you want to make sure that you protect something that anything that needs protection